What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video, I have what I believe to be the greatest team in the Holiday Cup. Watergun Lanturn on the lead, Vigoroth on the safe swap, and Froslass on the back. Lanturn and Froslass just make such a great core for each other in this cup, where Lanturn's got the water gun and surf for the rock types that Froslass is weak to, and Froslass covers the grass types that Lanturn's weak to. And Vigoroth, we all know by now, it's such a great generalist in everything that it does that it just makes for a fantastic safe swap in pretty much every single cup there is. Now, you could run Dubwool on the safe swap instead of Vigoroth, as they both cover pretty much the same thing and have the same role, but I don't have a Dubwool. I have a Vigoroth, and you'll see that it works just fine. This team is so strong, I highly recommend you check it out. But with that, let's get into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Lanturn into the mirror. We gotta check to see if it's Water Gun or Spark, and it is Spark, which means we are going to be losing this matchup. But that's alright, because we get to set one of our back two Pokemon up for some extra farm. My opponent goes for a Thunderbolt right away, and we're going to return fire with our own Thunderbolt. If they allow us to get to another Surf, and get a little bit of extra Surf chip damage off, then we could potentially bring in our Froslass for a farm down, a pretty hefty farm down. If they don't and they throw off their second Thunderbolt before we reach our Surf right after, then we bring in our Vigoroth and just counter all the way down and shield nothing. In this case, they throw on CMP, let us get the Surf off, and that's perfect because now we can bring in our Froslass and go for a Powder Snow farm down, but they don't let that happen. They switch into a Wigglytuff, and I'm just gonna launch off these avalanches. Opponent lets the first one go through, and now I'm gonna switch to my Vigoroth to farm down because I know that these counters will be able to farm it down in time before they reach the move, as opposed to the Powder Snows won't be able to farm it down in time before they reach a move. And added to that, I now have a huge energy advantage against whatever they have in the back, which is Charizard, and Charizard is not going to appreciate these body slams, as it is pretty glassy. Charizard loads up to the Blast Burn. They're going to throw it off right here, so I will Shield to respect it, even though it is most likely Dragon Claw bait, which it is. And that's okay, because we reached another Body Slam right here, and we're not quite in Dragon Claw range yet, so I can safely let this go, get off my next Body Slam, and take out the Charizard or get their final shield. See what my opponent wants to do. We get their final shield, so I'm going to immediately swap to my Froslass, throw two more Powder Snows, get to the Avalanche, take out the Charizard, and then from here, we can just safely get to another Avalanche to take out this Lanturn. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Lanturn into Vigoroth. So this is a pretty neutral matchup for us. Counters do add up over time, plus they get to hit for super effective with the Bulldoze, and two Surfs will take it out in return. But my opponent's just going straight Body Slam, and that's fine by me. Nothing to be worried about. I could potentially catch the next move on my Frost, which I try to do right here. Unfortunately, my opponent was patient, very good for them, and they're able to throw off a Bulldoze, but Bulldoze, we all know by now, it's a terrible move and doesn't do much. And it's a good thing I didn't shield it, because they have a Froslass in the back, and if they're bringing a Froslass into my Froslass, which has an energy lead, it's a pretty safe baiting scenario, especially with two shields, because they don't want to get one shot. But now that I have a shield advantage and a lead, my own Froslass did its job, so I'm perfectly fine letting it go and bringing in my Lanturn to get a ton of farm, because we do resist these Powder Snows and Avalanches. So I'm going to load up to the double Surf, but then throw off the Thunderbolt right before, because I didn't think Surf would KO from there, but a Thunderbolt does. And they have an Altaria in the back, so we're going to get off another Thunderbolt, which is pretty big. Going to do some nice chip damage to the Altaria, then swap immediately into our Vigoroth. Altaria will throw off a Sky Attack. I will shield this. And I'm going to load up over farm. I'm predicting my opponent is going to go for the catch, so I over farm so they can't make the catch. And now that my opponent lets that first Body Slam go, I can just counter all the way down. before they reach another sky attack. Next battle, Lanturn into Froslass. Fantastic lead for us. And what makes it even better is our opponent staying in, so they're potentially double weak to this Lanturn. But then they swap out on the surf to try and catch a surf. But like normal, we're over farming. We don't let our opponent try to make those catches. We throw off a Thunderbolt for some chip damage and then switch into a Vigoroth, which is going to allow us to maintain switch advantage. We want to maintain switch advantage in this situation because we don't want our own Froslass on their Froslass that already has a loaded Shadow Ball. So we throw off that Thunderbolt to be able to guarantee switch advantage. Bulldoze does take out the Lanturn, the Froslass comes in, and it's not going to be able to farm me down. It's going to have to throw a move, which they do right here on CMP tie to my Body Slam. Now I'm going to bring in my own Lanturn here. They're going to load up, throw a Shadow Ball. We're not worried about this. Lanturn is pretty tanky. It eats that no problem. Now they switch out into their Altaria, and we're able to bring our Froslass on this, and here out, the game's pretty much over. The turning point in this game would have been the mid game. So it was very, very important that we kept switch there by throwing that Thunderbolt onto their own Lanturn and then switching into our Vigoroth to be able to guarantee that we maintained alignment. Otherwise, if we had our Froslass on theirs, where their Froslass had the extra energy, and then Lanturn on Altaria, this game might have been very different. From here on out, there are many different ways we could close it. Close it out with the Frost, with the Lanturn. Either way is perfectly fine. So we do get their last shield with the Avalanche. We switch into our Lanturn to force them to throw. This does take out the Lanturn, and then from here, we could just reach another move. Go for the overkill with the Shadow Ball. Having a little fun with it. And GG's, well played to our opponent. Next match, we lead Lanturn into Dunsparce, and this is a core breaker for the team. Dunsparce gets to hit Lanturn with super effective for the drill runs, gets to hit Frost for super effective with the rock slides, but the good thing here is Lanturn, just said, very tanky. It can tank 2 drill runs no problem, and rollout is a very low damage move, so we're not in any harm or fear of being farmed down afterwards. We do land the Thunderbolt, which is huge for us. And they get the second drill run off, and we're going to immediately swap into our Vigoroth to get some counter damage on that Dunsparce. And they bring in a Froslass into our Vig, so this isn't looking good so far. But we'll see what we can do. Bulldoze lands, does a nice chunk of the Froslass health. They're going to throw off an Avalanche right before we get to a Body Slam, but this won't quite KO, so we do reach our Body Slam, get a little bit of extra chip damage off. And that's huge, because now I get to bring in my Lanturn and force them to either waste all their energy or not use any at all, because we're able to water gun down in time. So they lose all that stored energy that they had on their Froslass. And now that they have an Altaria in the back in this game, it's just completely flipped. We'll give it my first shield here. This will get the first shield from the Altaria. Pretty much all I have to do here is just, when the switch timers come back up, is just to make sure that they can't catch a move. Now we're both out of shields. There comes the Dunsparce. We're able to reach the Avalanche before they reach a Rock Slide. This will take out the Dunsparce, and then we Powder Snow down the Altaria for the win. GG's to my opponent. Very well played. Next game. Lanturn into Lickitung. This is a somewhat slightly negative matchup for us, since Lickitung can hit us for super effective with the Power Whips, and we're forced to go for neutral damage all around with our Surfs and Thunderbolt. But since Lickitung is very, very bulky, I'm not expecting them to use a shield on it at all. So we're going for the harder hitting move right off the bat with the Thunderbolt. Does a nice chunk of damage, and then we're going to throw off this Surf as soon as we get it. bringing the Lickitung down low. Again, they're not shielding a thing. They get to a Power Whip right here. This will bring me down into the red, but I'm not worried because I will be able to keep switch advantage. And they bring in a Sableye. So I'm going to throw off the Surf and then dip into my Vigoroth, as Sableye is kind of hard against my back line. But Vigoroth is my best answer to this since we resist the Shadow Claws. And these counters still somewhat add up. It's kind of surprising actually how much the counters do. Non-stab counters on a resisted Pokemon like Sableye. Kind of interesting. But we are just going to go for this Body Slam. We want to chip it down as much as possible so it doesn't have to face our Froslass. Unfortunately, they do get to a move right here. See if they're going to bring in their third or bring the Lickitung back in. It's a third, and we potentially could have dealt with a third Pokemon in the back as long as it wasn't Froslass. But from here, we really have no win con. So again, just going to have some fun with it. Go for the Avalanche as soon as we get it. Does get our opponent shield. Surprising. And now here, we're just going to let this go. Save some time in the match. Well played to my opponent. Very tough back line for my back line to deal with. GG's. Next match. Lanturn into Shadow Alolan Marowak. Fantastic lead for us. And again, we need to maintain alignment in this matchup. That AWAC cannot see our back line. So we're going to stay in, throw the Surf for some chip damage, and then go into our Vigoroth. And this way, again, we can guarantee alignment. They're going to be throwing off a Weather Ball. I will let this go. Going to throw 4 counters for good timing. 8 turns, which is 4 counters versus 9 turns for the 3 of their charms. They let it go. They bring in their Alolan Marowak to farm down, and we reach the Bulldoze just in time. This is huge because this is going to do some nice damage to the AWAC, which it does. Lanturn comes in. This is going to be a Bone Club. Super effective damage, but Bone Club is such a weak move. We're not worried about anything here. Now they bring in another Charm or Double Charm. And I have to reach 3 Avalanches on my Froslass here. Or even 2 for that matter, since we aren't that far off of a Surf from our Lanturn. And Lanturn would be able to Water Gun down, hopefully, in time. Before the AWAC Fire Spins us down, since Fire Spin is resisted. But we're throwing off our second Avalanche right here. Our opponent actually decides to let it go. So that makes our job a lot easier. Because now we can just easily Water Gun down in time. And our opponent realizes that, so they top left. GG's. Next match. Lanturn into Dubwool. This is probably the main spot on the team where we want to see it. Froslass does decent, since Dubwool has to throw the payback at us, but it then becomes a baiting game. Vigoroth's pretty neutral. So Lanturn just overall is probably our best option here. So they do go for a Body Slam, and now this is enough for a payback, and it is the payback, and we survive it. So now we're going to immediately save swap into our Vig, and they pivot into a Sableye. And like last time, this is kind of a tough situation because Sableye is not good for our back line. So we're going to go straight for this Bulldoze, hoping they let it through, but they shield. Great call by my opponent. This is enough for the return, but I'm just going to call foul play. Sableyes love going foul play, which they do. And right here, I'm hoping I can survive this and get to another Bulldoze. It would be absolutely massive if I can, but I can't. The foul play just takes us out. That's a little unfortunate because now my Froslass is going to be chunked away from these Shadow Claws. I will have to shield up this foul play, give it my first shield. My opponent goes for the catch, but we're over farming, so that doesn't happen. And now we switch out right as a Dubwool gets to a Body Slam to force them to throw and empty that energy onto our Lanturn. And from here, I'm looking to the top right, seeing the typing of what they bring in. And it's a Froslass. So they're running Dubwool, Double Ghost. It's a very strong line. We're just going to throw the Shadow Ball right away, no baiting, because we're expecting them to save their shield for the Sableye. Now it's a race. Are we going to reach double avalanche in time before 1, they Shadow Claw us down, or 2, get to the back-to-back foul play? And it seems like they're at the back-to-back foul play, but that Powder Snow that just went through brings us to the avalanche. We win the CMP tie, and we're able to take a very, very close game against a tough backline for us. GG's. Next battle. Lanturn into Trevenant, and this is a huge core breaker for our team. There are really only 2 core breakers for this team, which is Dunsparce, which you saw earlier, and Trevenant, which you're seeing right now. But I do swap into the Vigoroth, since Vigoroth has the somewhat better matchup against the Trevenant, because even though both Lanturn and Vigoroth's entire moveset is resisted against the Trevenant, Vigoroth double resist the Shadow Claws, while Lanturn takes neutral from them. We are able to bring the Trevenant down below half health. They bring in a double. Unfortunately, not able to get the body slam off in time, but that is all right. Again, Double's going to throw a body slam right here. We're going to load up, throw the Thunderbolt right before they get to another move. Just doesn't take out the double. They live on 1 HP and are able to get off this payback. Wild Charge, actually. They're running Wild Charge. Quite interesting moveset to run Wild Charge in this cup. I would think if you're running double, run Payback over Wild Charge. It just has that extra coverage. And look at this. Steel Wing Skarmory. Froslass with 2 shields. Prime position to sweep, right? No. No, not with a Steel Ring Skarmory. Just absolutely farms us all the way down. I'm going for the Shadow Ball right here. Who knows? Maybe they let it through. They don't. So we top left. Very cool team by my opponent. Very interesting one. GG's to them. Vigoroth Lead. Again, somewhat neutral, since they can hit us for super effective with the Bulldoze, and 2 Surfs is enough to take out the Vigoroth. But I'm just going straight for the Thunderbolt and then farm down right here. If they let it go through, we would be able to Water Gun down, but they shield. Little unfortunate. Would have been nice to go for the Surf then, but that is perfectly fine. Bulldoze comes through, does a big chunk of damage to our Lanturn, and the Vigoroth is forced to throw another Body Slam to take us out. Otherwise, we would reach a Surf. And now from here, I bring in my Froslass, so I can literally just farm down the Vigoroth and leave with 100 energy, but they pivot into an Obstagoon, and that's great because I got my Vigoroth for the Obstagoon. I'm going to throw off this Body Slam. This will take out the Obstagoon. And now we just got to see what they have in back. Again, Froslass with 2 shields is just such a fantastic closer in this cup. Just in general, really. And it's a Froslass of their own. So now we're shield advantage up, even on energy. There is really 0 point to me baiting in this situation. Me baiting and them calling an avalanche is a lose con. All I have to do is just be careful that they don't catch a move. So you see right there, I wait a turn to see their Powder Snow come through before I throw my Shadow Ball. Just need to make sure they don't catch. And here my opponent's counting was a little bit off to the next Shadow Ball. So they do swap to try and catch. So we're able to hold on. We're able to load up to 100 energy, and 100 energy is enough for both an Avalanche and a Shadow Ball. So we throw off this Avalanche to take out the Vigoroth, and then the Shadow Ball to take out the Froslass. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lanturn into the Mirror. See if this one plays out similar as last time, where they let us get to... It's Spark, yeah. So see if they let us get to a Thunderbolt and a Surf. Of which they do, we'll bring in our Froslass. If they don't, then we bring in our Vigoroth and commit to the farm down. So we're going to throw off our Thunderbolt right here. Nice chunk of damage. And then the Lanturn throws their Thunderbolt before we get to a Surf. So that's okay. Perfectly fine. We let this go. And now we're going to bring in our Vigoroth and just counter this thing. Counter all the way down. If they go for a Thunderbolt right here, we will be able to counter all the way down and leave with 100 energy, but they go for the Surf, which means we're not going to be able to counter all the way down in time before they reach another Surf. So I go for the Body Slam on the CMP tie, and my opponent actually shields it, and they faint as well. For those who don't know, a shielded move still does 1 HP of damage. So that means the opposing Lanturn only had 1 HP left, and that Body Slam with the 1 HP of damage KO'd through the shield, which is absolutely massive for us. And my opponent is shielding their Obstagoon as well against the Vigoroth, which is very, very surprising since it's already a negative matchup. It just means that they probably are very weak in the back to the Vigoroth. And they have a Abomasnow. So I let that first Night Slash go through against the Obstagoon just in case they boost, because they are going to reach 2. So then I shield the second one, and that allows me to save a shield for whatever they have in the back, which here's the Abomasnow, which we were able to outpace to the double avalanches to be able to take it out and take the game. GG's to my opponent. Just one more Powder Snow takes out the Obstagoon in the back, and that is a good game. And that is the end of the video. So yeah, if you enjoyed this team, please give it a go. It is so good. I just absolutely love Lanturn since it got Surf last season. Vigoroth's Vigoroth, we all know how that is. And Froslass, one of the best closers in the game. You combine them all together, you get a fantastic team, you really do. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.